The land was still, heavy with the first hints of autumn decay. Fields browned early that year, and livestock refused to stray from the edges of their pens. In the heart of the Buckeye Woods stood the Whitley house, a limestone farmhouse flanked by skeletal walnut trees and wild burdock that had overgrown the path to the cellar. Few knew who lived there anymore. Locals whispered about a girl, others said she wasn't a girl at all, just a sound, screaming, heard late at night from the well or beneath the floorboards. Her name was Margaret Bellamy, 16 years old. Kept inside by her father for nearly her entire life, she hadn't been enrolled in the schoolhouse. No one recalled seeing her at the Sunday sermon. But they all remembered her mother, Eliza Bellamy, a woman with pale knuckles and bruises under her collar who vanished the winter Margaret turned 9. The official story was that Eliza died of consumption, but the ground where her grave was supposed to be remained undisturbed. By the end of September, Margaret would be seen only once in public, half naked, shaking and barefoot, dragged into town by a neighbor who found her collapsed at the edge of the old stone quarry. She would utter a single sentence before fainting, "He put the books in my skin." That would be the last time she ever spoke. August 19th, 1823 loud cries reported by 3 separate families near the Bellamy property. Locals assumed wolves. August 26th, Reverend Alcott claimed to see someone, or something, digging by the riverbank near the Whitley house hours before sunrise. August 29th, Margaret Bellamy appears at the McCreary farm, delirious, speaking in tongues. Her body is covered in shallow cuts and cryptic black symbols inked in some unknown resin. September 1st, Margaret is brought to the clinic in Mt. Vernon. 3 doctors refuse to treat her. One retires that very day, citing spiritual affliction as his reason. September 5th, Margaret is transferred to the attic of the Holloway Chapel. No further public sightings. Her father, Thomas Bellamy, is found dead in the cellar 2 days later. September 9th, Margaret vanishes from her locked room. The local constable writes a single-word report. Gone. Testimony. Dr. Caleb Morthan, 1008. 123 journal entry. When I approached her, the girl seemed almost lucid. But upon lifting her shift to examine her ribs, I discovered rows of incised symbols. Some were stitched over crudely, some left to fester. Each mark was accompanied by faint Latin or Greek characters I did not recognize. I asked her who did this to her. She looked at me calm and said, "It is not a language you'll ever speak out loud." Then she smiled. It wasn't human, it was theatrical, mocking, as if something behind her skin was smiling through her. A sight of sealed rooms and buried books after Margaret's disappearance. The property was boarded up by the county, but records from the 154 investigation following a local spiritualist's complaints described a sealed basement wall discovered behind the hearth. When broken, it revealed a small stone room with no doors. Inside, a child's cot, rusted chains, pages nailed to the walls with iron tacks. Each page was torn from religious texts, but rewritten altered. One page bore this phrase, scrawled in a mixture of ink and dried blood. "What was once read is now remembered. What is remembered is now flesh." There was also a worn leather, bound black diary belonging to Thomas Bellamy. Only 12 pages were legible, the rest had been torn or burned. Excerpt from Thomas Bellamy's journal, July 1008, 122. Eliza said the girl talks to herself too much. I told her she isn't talking to herself. She's practicing. She reads the books when I sleep. She sings when I'm in the cellar, but it's not her voice I hear. I found the old Latin reader beneath her bed, but the letters rearranged themselves when I looked at them. They moved. My fingers went numb. I swear to God, that book wasn't there yesterday. I asked Margaret where she got it. She said, "He gave it to me, the boy in the wall." Margaret's case spread beyond Ohio, reaching religious scholars in Massachusetts and Pennsylvania. Some claimed the symbols on her body matched those found in obscure monastic documents written by Frater Lemuel, a 14th century heretic who believed scripture could be embedded into human flesh to preserve divine knowledge after death. Others pointed to the Bellamy manuscript, a banned text reportedly stolen from the Vatican in the 1007 hundreds rumored to drive readers insane by compelling them to rewrite the body as a holy archive. Audio recordings don't exist, of course. But the Holloway Chapel ledger from September 3rd references screaming in multiple tones and a man's voice reciting psalms, despite the only known occupant being Margaret. I left her a plate of warm milk and oat bread. She hadn't eaten in 3 days. I closed the door. I swear on my husband's grave, I locked it. That lock was solid iron. She was crying when I left. Her mouth had gone dry. But when I came back an hour later, she was gone. The window hadn't opened. The lock hadn't turned, and the only thing left behind was the blanket, folded into the shape of a person kneeling. Some believe Margaret Bellamy never existed. A mass delusion, they say. A backwoods hysteria conjured by a deeply religious and emotionally unstable town. But the county coroner's report confirms a girl was brought in, and 3 licensed physicians testified to seeing her injuries. Others propose she was possessed, not by a demon, but by the lingering presence of her mother, Eliza, whose own journals found beneath a loose plank in the bedroom floor in 1867 mention hearing Margaret whisper in her sleep, in voices too deep to belong to a child. But the most chilling theory was recorded by Elias Hartman, a diviner who visited the Whitley house in 1837. The symbols weren't written on her, they were grown. Each marking was fed by the blood beneath, like roots feeding from marrow. I believe the girl had become something else, a kind of living scripture, and her body rejected treatment not out of fear, but because healing would destroy the message. Margaret's room sealed since 1823 in 1994. During a property redevelopment survey, the attic room of Holloway Chapel was opened for the first time in 171 years. The walls were scorched, not burned, scorched with shadow outlines like silhouettes caught mid-scream. The floorboards had long since rotted, but etched into one surviving plank, under layers of paint and dust, were the words, "He's still writing, every night, in someone new." The plank was removed for preservation. That night, the local historical society burned down. No cause was ever determined. No bodies were found, just ash and a single iron nail still warm.